Welcome to Electorama Weekly. Today we're talking with Tom Cavin about serial approval vote election, sometimes abbreviated as SAVE. SAVE is not quite a normal one-stage single winner election method for coming to consensus on a single option. It's an iterative process for collective decisions, especially decisions where the options are motions, policies, budgets, documents, plans, or other proposals that can be revised or replaced as the group learns more. SAVE came up briefly in our video cast a couple weeks ago. Moreover, Tom has the distinction of being the first co-host of Electorama Weekly, and we briefly chatted then about it. We'll get to that in a moment. I'm your host, Rob Lanfear, founder of the Election Methods mailing list, co-founder of electorwiki.org, board member for Equal Vote Coalition, though not speaking in any official capacity today. And I'm joined by co-hosts Taylor Egan-Fisher and Carlo Estefano.
Hello, I'm Taylor Egan-Fisher. I'm a mathematician. And you can find my stuff at eigentaylor.github.io.
Hello, I'm Carlo Estefano. I'm an environmental science student at Sam Houston State University. I love all sorts of voting systems. You can find me on YouTube under Carlo Estefano. Same with Discord, same with Slack, same with everything.
And our guest is Tom Cavin, who has been developing SAVE and the serial approval vote election.org website for many years. Tom, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Rob. It's good to be here.
Could you briefly introduce yourself and say what drew you into this project?
Well, SAVE started as an exploration after I ran into Arrow's impossibility theorem. I proved it as an exercise, didn't like it, and didn't get back to it for decades. But when I finally got back to it, I said, okay, Arrow says voting systems are a perfect voting system is impossible, but could we make a better one? So I started doing that and started looking at things, and SAVE originated from actually IRV, because in looking at systems, I said, okay, why don't I see how IRV performs? And rather than, I did a computer hack on this thing, which says, instead of getting a full ranking, I just did a plurality vote, eliminated the candidate, plurality vote again, and basically did it as an iterative process. Now, that makes it very easy to see what's going on, but isn't at all what IRV does. But it got me thinking about iteration. And iteration is one of the key factors with SAVE, because it lets you get back to things. It's really important because, among other things, if you have a cycle, A beats B, B beats C, C beats A, and that's the information you have no way of breaking it. If you go back to your voters and say, hi, everybody, we have a cycle here. Does anybody want to change their vote? You have a way of getting back to it without having it forced by whatever voting method you're using. The other way iteration comes into effect with SAVE is from Giver's theorem, which says any system where you have more than two choices is either going to be a dictatorship or is going to be subject to strategic voting. And strategic voting is considered bad, but under iteration, it's perfectly fine. In fact, it's an excellent way of doing things, because you get a preliminary result and you know that's what it is. It's preliminary, but you know what it would be. You alter your vote a little bit and you get a better outcome. And then you just keep it up until you're collectively satisfied with the vote, with the outcome you have. So you deal with cycles, you deal with Condorcet winners that aren't very good, which can also happen, and you can deal with strategy. So that's all a benefit of iteration. And the major thing with SAVE is I just iterated on approval voting, which is a very simple method, and that's what I ended up with. So how's that for an intro?
Okay. Sounds good. So let's see here. So somebody visit serial approval vote election for the first time, what page should they open first, and what should they try to notice?
Well, the site's in flux, and I haven't changed as much as I should have, and there are things going on. So I want to, what it's doing now is, there's just a lot there. But the other thing about it is that it's not really organized. There are a few things that would be helpful to note from the menu. And that is, if you look at the menu, some of the items will have an asterisk after them. Those are pages that have an explorable, a simulation that you can play with to look at, to see what's going on. There are 3 or 4 ones directly on save, some on aggregation, some on what we're actually want to find out what the best alternative is. And there are a few other things that I have coming, but not there.
Okay, well, let's do this. Let's go ahead and let's actually just start in on the demo.
Okay.
I'm going to go to the website right now, and then I'm hoping you can walk me through the website. So, Tom, can you see the website?
I can see the website, yes.
Okay.
I'm also familiar with it.
Okay, so what should I click on here?
Okay. Well, just a general overview. That header section has a lot of stuff on it. It's also a 3-bar menu if your screen's narrow. The far left is just intro. The next column is basically essays or blog posts or something. The third column is where you'd see save. That's where you start seeing the simulations. Notice
Okay.
the chart gives you a flow chart. That might be useful just to take a look at it before we actually play with it.
Okay, so which one should I click on again?
Chart.
Chart.
Where you are now.
Okay, here we go. So I'm on the save chart page now, and there's
Okay.
the flow chart.
Yep.
Okay. So is what we're looking at here describing the method?
Yeah, this is just the way it goes through. First round, a save loop round, the choice for final focus, and finishing up. It's basically, do I need to explain approval voting?
So not really. I think
Okay.
I'll just briefly explain. Approval voting is you're giving a normal looking ballot that has just tick marks next to all of the candidates, and instead of only being able to choose one, you can choose as many as you want to, and the candidate with the highest approval rating wins. That's it in a nutshell. So with serial approval, that first round ends in the finding of a focus. Am I correct about that?
Yes, you are.
Okay. So you find a focus, and then what?
After you have the focus, you have another round of voting. Again, with the ballot is almost exactly like the approval ballot, and the only difference is a single motion, or whatever you're choosing. One of them has been designated as the focus. And when you're looking at a ballot like that, this is where strategy comes in. If you like that choice, you can just vote for it. If you don't think that's where we want to end up, you then look at all the other options and compare them to the focus and say, if our focus is F, I compare A to F. If A is better than F, in my opinion, I vote for A. Go down to B. B versus F. If B is better, vote for B as well. If C is better, it isn't. Don't vote for it. D, E, whatever, how many options you have. But you're voting for all the things you think are better than the focus. And you also can't vote for the focus if you think it's good enough to stop with. Everything's tallied at the end of that, and you have a whole bunch of votes, some of whom may have gotten more than your focus, some less, and you just count it as if it's just you count each individual box you're checking as a separate election. It's either a non-focus candidate against a focus, in which if the non-focus candidate is collectively better, it'll get a tie or better in the scoring. So it'll get more than half the votes, half or better. If you're looking at the focus candidate, if the focus votes gets more than half the votes and gets more votes than anyone else, any other option, any other choice item, we're done at that. So you can accept it as soon as you like it. If enough people accept it, that terminates the loop. If not, you look at what happened and you have another round. Now, this diagram describes that figure. Basically, the first column on the left is the initial focus round, the initial thing with no focus. The next column is what you're doing with the focus round. The third column is how you select the focus, and the fourth column is for a final mandate round, which got added to save when I realized that a lot of politicians, when they get elected, say they won, therefore they have a mandate for anything they wanted, as opposed to just being barely better than somebody else. So in this case, since we're set up for multiple votes anyway, the final round is a final approval vote round, no focus in there, and you just say whether, what you like.
Okay. So let's talk through some of the so this website, there's a lot of interactivity on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What is
Save Basics?
Save Basics. Okay. We'll go there. And then I should zoom in on this simulation.
Yes. If you widen your screen, that might get bigger. Yeah. And you might want to keep it a little bit to the side because you'll have stuff coming up in the right-hand side there.
Oh, okay.
Now, what you have with this election simulation, those yellow dots are voters. The field, you have basically a two-dimensional decision space. So a voter has a preference in a horizontal and a vertical direction. Their location is whatever it is you're deciding, whether it's taxes and spending, a budget item or something. It's represented as those issues. It's a simple two-dimensional system because that's enough to show you the complication, and you don't get problems with trying to display 17 items or something.
Sure. I mean, I guess so. So I played around with this a little bit before now. Let me understand. So with the simulations, so is everything strictly a simulation on this website, or is there actually a way? Is there any software to facilitate a save election?
No, there isn't. I'll be writing a document and getting that up there, which says how to run one. But the only thing you need for it is a way of running an approval vote election.
Okay. And then on the thing that we're looking at here,
yeah.
So I so for example, in the case of a Condorcet cycle, you actually have a button you can click to force it to give you a cycle. Is that right?
Right, and that's what you're looking now. It defaults with one of those things.
Oh, okay. This is the default. Okay.
That's a cycle.
I didn't realize this was a cycle. Okay. This is a different cycle. This is different a cycle. All right.
Yep. Now, if you go down to one more to a uniform, you can. That might even be a cycle, but it's not necessarily. You can click again in there.
Oh, wait a minute. Okay.
Yeah, click uniform a couple times just to see how it goes with each one.
Okay.
I know, like this one, you're not going to have a cycle. That's going to be what is it? C in there in the middle is probably going to win.
Okay.
Because A and B are both extremes.
And so these basically, this is just sort of very similar to interactive Yi diagrams, right?
Possibly. It's I'm not as familiar with U diagrams, but basically I'm giving you an election. The U diagram is saying, I think, that you're picking each pixel and you're coloring it based on if that's what the average election is, where it's going to be. With save, you're actually seeing a single election, not a multiple of them, not an average. And that means that what you're looking at is you have was it 100 voters there, and 3 options. There's some simulation choices I've made that are debatable, but for example, if you'll notice, if you close up on any of the voters there, any of the motions, there's those initial motions are all around a voter, which basically means that that voter proposed their ideal as a starting point.
Okay. So how do I see the result of this election?
Well, you have to run the election first. And
okay. So I have to hit next step.
Hit next step.
Okay.
And what you get is on the right, you have all the votes for the 3 candidates there.
Okay. And
those are very small numbers.
What's that?
Those are very small numbers. There are 100 voters and nobody's over 10. Right?
Okay.
That's because nobody really approves of those choices. But the approval threshold is fairly high in this example because it's designed to go multiple rounds. So you're only voting for the top 20% of the candidates. And for some voters, there may be nothing in the top 20% because they're looking at a scale based on the furthest alternative to them. And, that's 100% away. And then you score that to 0. And then you want to score something. And if you're voting for yourself, like as one of the candidates there that proposed A would be voting for A. And I think I don't remember I can't really see it from the screen, but it's top to bottom. Is it A, C, B or ABC?
It's ABC.
ABC, okay. So somebody between A and B might be voting for A and C, but not voting for D. The only folks voting for D are the ones that are in that cluster in the lower right-hand side. And it looks like there was 6 votes there. 4 or 6? I can't read the numbers.
There's 974 is what I'm seeing.
Okay. So there are only 4 people.
Okay, so if I hit next step.
If you hit next step, what's happened is that if you look on the right before you hit it, there's an asterisk next to A, which says it got the most votes. So it's the focus candidate for the next round.
Okay.
Now, if you click next step.
Okay. So I'll hit next step. Okay.
And
now C is the new focus, right?
Yes. If it has the asterisk, yeah.
Okay. Now, what do all these numbers mean?
Okay. There'll be 3 rows which have the same initial letter for the candidate. That's the focus candidate from the round that we just did.
Uh-huh.
And that tells you that if you look at it, the current focus is labeled A. It is the focus, that's why it has an F there. And in the previous round, it got 9 votes. If you look at the next row, that's the number of votes that the focus candidate, whichever it is, got at that round. And the final one says who is the focus candidate for that round. Because what happens if, and right now what you have is C has, if I'm reading right, it's like 82, 50 in focus. Are those the numbers?
Yeah.
Okay. So B tied A, C beat it substantially. And so C is now the focus. And it's the one in the middle there. It should have a cross through if you're looking at the screen.
Yep.
At the display.
Yeah, it does.
And so the next thing that would happen is you do another round.
Okay, so I'll hit next step now.
Next step now.
Okay.
And
right, so
and C is still the focus, right?
Okay. And the voters never move unless I manually move them?
Yeah, I'm not even sure if you can manually move them except at the very beginning. You might be able to. You can certainly try it. click on something. If it shows up,
Okay.
yeah, you can move it.
Oh, okay. Got it. All right. But
Right.
but in order to see, like,
right.
in order to see how like a group of voters moving, I'd have to like move them all individually.
Right, and that's not really what we want to be doing with this. We're trying in this simulation, you're not looking at movement. You're looking at people have their opinions. They're not going to change their opinions, but they might vote for something differently depending on other information, like what other people are doing, or like which is the focus. Or in this case, now that C, if you look down at if we look at those top 3 lines, again, we now have 3 lines with C, which is the current focus. That first line is showing you the fact that C is a focus, that A, when it was a focus, got, what is it, 82 votes? No, C was the focus N2, wasn't it? No,
So
A was the focus.
the IAV was, the focus was A, and then the subsequent round 1 and round 2, C won those elections.
Right. So C defeated A in the first round, and this has been its first round as the focus. So the line that starts with C at the top is all the votes that C got in every round. The next row is all the votes that the focus got, which is a vote for termination, and those are still fairly low. And the third C row is showing that C is the current focus and A is the previous focus. B is showing its vote count per round, and A is showing its vote count per round, as well as the F that says it was a focus the first time. So that's how that table works. Now, the other thing that happened here, because C has been repeated, the thing that you can do with iteration is you can actually add something to it. Now, once a motion has been has participated in a vote, it's fixed. It cannot be changed, which is why I think of these as documents and not people. But you can think of it as party platforms or something too. But at this point, you can click. There's something called Add Voter. There's also something called Add Motion.
Okay, and I should click Add Motion.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll add motion.
Okay. Now that one came in because it's the next voter to they were generated in order. The first 3 are the preference of the first 3 voters. This is the 4th voter. It's his preference, but you can move that around. So you can take that disk, just click on the yellow part, and move it to somewhere you like better, or somewhere you think the group might like better.
Okay, so I'll move it. I'll move it nearish to the center. Okay, like that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
And then hit next step.
Yeah. Well, hold on. The other thing you could do is, if you want to be more realistic about it, you click the Hide Voter button.
Okay, what does that do?
It removes the voters from the screen, so you don't see where they are, so you can't really cheat and use the information what everybody thinks of.
Why would I do that? Okay. I mean, I guess I'll do that. I mean, I can hit it again to. So I can look at you can voters. Okay.
You can show it again, right? But if you look at it, you're seeing, if you have it hidden, any of the voters there, this is the information that they all have in common, and they may know what their own position is on there, but they don't know where anybody else's position is.
Okay.
So that means, like, when you're trying to move it into a cluster or something, you used information you wouldn't have.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So let's see. I'll show voters again. Okay. So I'm going to hit next step now.
Yep.
Okay. And then, okay. And that actually caused D to emerge as the new focus.
Right. Now, another thing that I didn't say, but might have been obvious, is that when C was the focus and we had it, no one defeated C. So it was a Condorcet winner. And so C would have been the only possible option, the best possible option of that first set. But you added something, and that defeated your Condorcet winner, which is basically one of the things that makes this method so special. because you're not stuck with the Condorcet winner. You know, with Condorcet's original work, he found out that in any election, if you look at the preferences, you'll either have a single candidate that beats everybody else, or you'll have some type of a cycle. And Condorcet said that, well, my method will pick the best one if it's there, and I have no idea what to do after that. So he throws his hand up and used Borda, which I think is called Black's method now, but you can look that up.
Different.
Yeah. In this case, this is doing something that Condorcet or Borda or anybody else didn't think of, because you're actually adding something. This is why it's more of a negotiation than trying to pick among the extreme positions that were there at the beginning. Which, from my point of view, my focus isn't so much picking from a choice, it's trying to say, what do the voters want? And that means that there has to be something there behind those positions. If this is a left-right scale, liberal, conservative, fiscally responsible, fiscally irresponsible, whatever the thing is, or however many issues you're talking about, they actually have meaning to the voters. And my goal is to do more to find what the voters want, rather than to pick something from that initial set, which generally, unless you have some prior information, that set is not necessarily going to be good. It could be, but there's no guarantee that the best solution is in the original set. So at this point, we now have...
Yeah. Carlo, what we're going to say?
Sorry, Tom, sorry to interrupt. Actually, that actually made me want to ask a question. Would you say that SAVE is kind of at home in legislative procedure then? Because I know that in the open democracy discussions, we've been talking about like more, I don't know, I guess like unified, collaborative, more equal legislative procedure to write laws in a more clear, transparent way. You're kind of doing this, you explained it sort of like a negotiation protocol almost. Do you think SAVE is at home there with legislative procedure?
Well, it should be anyway. It's designed around that type of thing. However, it's also designed, one of the problems, I mean, if you saw the musical Hamilton, the wanting to be in the room where it happens, well, in this case, if SAVE is deployed fully, and you're getting a lot of election rounds, you could actually replace like the whole primary process for the president with a SAVE election procedure that's going to run for months, and having votes every 2 weeks or every month or so, and get you a better platform of what people want. And then after that's decided, you can then pick candidates who are best able to perform that platform. Another way of thinking about it is in the current state of affairs. And I don't want to get too political in this thing, but I will have to admit that I don't like what's going on by our current government. And given that, so you may or may not agree with that, but if that's the case, something like SAVE can help you correct the damage done by telling what the whole rest of the country wants. And maybe the whole rest of the country really is favoring Donald Trump and thinks he's doing a wonderful job, and it would give you that. If you don't think that, if the country doesn't agree with that, it would show up. But the point is that this is a way of getting feedback from the voters affecting the outcome.
So for president, it would be kind of like a formalized negotiation deliberative protocol, essentially, for selecting a candidate, or?
Well, you can use this for a candidate, but it's not really designed for that. What's a better thing to consider is, okay, suppose we take we want a review of the first 2 years of the Trump's term, and we say, okay, do you like what has been done by our government or not? And you take all those things and you put any issue that you have on the ballot, and you say, "Oh, status quo, that's fine. Everything's hunky dory," or, "Oh no, Doge did something that was awful. We need to get rid of that. We need to undo that," or something else. And all the different things that people would be wanting to can be put in here on the same ballot, and all the voters, or even all the citizens, or even all the inhabitants, if depending on what you want to look at, can be
Mhm.
voting and saying what they want, or do they approve of this? Were these Supreme Court decisions correct or incorrect? Were government actions or inactions right or wrong? All
I
these
could
things.
be sorry. I could be misinterpreting. So please correct me if I'm kind of understanding conceptually something wrong. You mentioned that voters or people involved in like the iterative process, they can propose kind of their own questions or they can have proposals. Would you have some kind of signature requirement for that, or would it be kind of a free like thing that would be pushed just by deliberation? Anybody could put something up.
Um, that is a valid question. I think for some elections, anybody could stand up and do it. Like if we're talking about doing it in a town
Okay.
hall or something. If you're going to look at it nationwide, you might need to have some sort of co-sponsors or have more than just one person proposing it.
Yeah.
And if this is envisioned as an internet process, so you could have essentially a feeder camp, or something where you can say, vote, these are the proposals that are in sort of off the side. If you think that deserves something more, you can vote it up. And once it reaches a threshold, it gets onto the full ballot. And once it's
Sure.
there, it stays there. So there's a way of filtering things out, but there's also an easier way of getting support than trying to get signatures.
Yeah.
If you're a voter, you can click on something and say, oh, yeah, put it on the ballot. And you're also talking about if you're using the same identity that you're using to vote with, it's a valid identity because you've gone through whatever process it is to validate your internet voting, and that means it's a lot easier to get signatures. You can post it, and if somebody's scanning and says, I I think that something else was in there. Is there something that someone else is trying to do that I could sign on to? They could do that. So
Uh,
that type of thing could work well.
Okay, so I want to make sure. So Taylor, did you have any questions that
Yeah,
you wanted
yeah.
to ask?
I wanted to jump in. So, because you brought up replacing or using this in presidential primaries, and I guess that kind of, I'm just wondering, like, what does that look like logistically?
Right.
Because it's one thing if we're talking about legislators in a room, or city council members in a town hall, people who can be there for the process and debate and have a dialogue. But like, are we expecting people to vote multiple times in practice? So like, what does it look like logistically?
Okay. There's what I'm envisioning, and there are practical aspects of it that are not necessarily determined. I said the presidential primary, but what I'm really thinking about in that thing is the primary process, where I don't know if you've ever experienced this. If there were like a presidential candidate that you wanted to vote for, and they were eliminated before your primary came up, that's sort of disappointing. You never had a chance to vote for somebody you actually liked. In this case, what you're doing is you're voting more on policy, and you're getting voter input independent of party. You're asking what the nation wants is as far as policy, as what's going on, and you're fighting out these debates using SAVE to give every option the best way of presenting itself. You also have, probably a website for each of those motions, which can describe the good or bad effects of it. There's a whole discussion session, or a whole way of organizing information that came from MIT called it's either collaboratorium or deliberatorium. that came from MIT's Center for Collective Intelligence. You can look it up on MIT's website. It's basically a way of taking an idea and fleshing it out and giving, rather than just like thumbs up or thumbs down or Me Too comments coming in there. If you agree with something, you can just add a number to it or increment a counter. So all the ideas are there. The counter is weighing them, and it gives you a way of describing what's there. Now that's getting the idea of the motion itself. SAVE comes into the picture with the motion being described as the collaboratorium entry. But what you're voting on is this better than some other idea that's there?
Okay, so I guess I'm just wondering, where does the president come into this? So, like, if we do this, we have all these issues. Are we supposed to find the person in America who supports all these policies and trust that they'll enact them, or
or is trusted to do what we want with them? I mean, if you have a candidate who's elected and who hasn't even expressed their policies, or hasn't been clear on it, or doesn't, denied them or something, you're talking, and then they get elected after having to deny it, and then go full, straight ahead with something that they had denied earlier. That's not doing something right by the electorate. If instead the electorate tells the candidates what they want, they argue about why they would be better suited to implement these policies, which changes the election. It gets a little bit away from the mudslinging, because the policies have already been determined by that point.
So if I may ask just real quick, I know Taylor, you wanted to respond to that. Would it be inaccurate to kind of sort of describe that as almost like a formal national electorate presidential platform that candidates can build off of, they can get inspired from? Could that maybe be sort of like a one angle, I guess, that it could be described as?
That is one angle for it. I mean, the idea is that it's not just the president, it's everybody in government. And
Sure.
if the voters have voted on what we want our government to do, and candidates are running on how we can best implement what you just told us we wanted, then we're talking about a different type of election and probably different types of candidates. Because sometimes people run for the office because they want to change something, and they don't necessarily want to tell you what it is they want to change. But in this case, you're telling the voters are saying, this is what we want, this is what we support. And also subtext on that is, if you don't do this, we'll vote you out and get somebody else in, or maybe even have you impeached. It's sort of the idea is that we're getting something that says, this is the government, we're describing what we want, and we're negotiating what we collectively want. And everybody has different ideas about that. Everybody will be served slightly differently or majorly differently, depending on what we select as a collective on those policies. But we're balancing it by, adding all those options, and any of those options can win. But only if you're collectively chosen as a focus,
Okay. So I mean, I have maybe one or two questions to ask that might be in a different direction, but I do want to sort of wind this down because we're running out of time. One question I want to ask is, like, is the majority aspect of like choosing a new focus a requirement of this?
It is, because one of the things you're talking about, we're trying to improve.
Majority?
What? Yeah, the supermajority.
Majority or 40%? Like, why 50% exactly?
All right. There's the thing with the focus. There's the next simulation on there, if you go out to under those SAVE basics, is one called SAVE Focus, which is goes in great detail on how the focus is selected in each round. In order to be a focus, it has to have defeated, it has to get at least a majority of the vote. Excuse me, a tie or better. If it ties the focus candidate, but nobody beats the focus candidate, you have a weak endorsing winner, and you're not going to do anything. You're not going to change it. If any other motion defeats the focus, you have several options now, and the focus is drawn from the set of motions that tied or defeated the previous focus.
Okay. Okay, I don't want to. I didn't want to like dive into a whole new demo here. So we'll just encourage people to look at the save focus side of things.
Yeah, if you take that menu, you're just going up and click the select next step a couple of times, you'll see what happens. Now, as you're doing it, that text on the top is describing everything that goes on, every step of selecting the focus. And it tells you all the details. Everything else is the same as the say basics, but it's explaining what the focus is. And you can see the different rules that come into play. And if you scroll down the screen, you can see what happened in the previous rounds.
Okay. Okay.
So,
yeah. So like I said, I didn't want to get into yet another demo. So anyway, well, yes, thanks for showing this to us all, Tom. We appreciate it. And so for viewers, the safe site is at serialapprovalelection.org. I'll put that on the screen, and we'll put that link in the show notes along with the ElectorWiki page for serial approval vote election. You can read about serial vote. So Tom wrote or at least big chunks of the save article on ElectorWiki as well, and you can find out about more about it there. Yeah, so thank you for joining us, Tom. And go ahead, Carlo.
Yeah, sorry. If I may just ask one question, not really a question. I guess I just wanted to kind of give like a really short last thought about save.
Okay.
So Tom, actually, I what I find very interesting is that you're inspired by kind of like trying to bring an electorate together, and with that, I wonder really if you could maybe okay, of course I'm not going to be like, I'm not asking you to do this right now, but like it would be very interesting and very cool to see save in some form be in some kind of like open source format, some kind of application where you could I don't know, verify your residency for a specific candidate, and potentially you could have this sort of like formal platform where voters can have this kind of discussion, almost like a virtual like town hall meeting or whatever, right? And I think that could potentially be a very intuitive use of save, and also be potentially a gateway drug towards liquid democracy, because now you're doing a thing where you're getting the voters more involved, and I'd be very curious to see that platform idea, because I see that as a very intuitive application of save, and it would give candidates a very, very specific idea of like, oh, maybe I should vote on this legislation in this way or this way or this way. I don't have to spend another $500,000 or whatever doing more poll testing and stuff like that. So I find it very fascinating.
Basically, that's part of the thing. Right now I'm trying to get save to be tried anywhere, because that way it's something that I get a paper on or something, which means it gets more publicity, which means it can go get put on Wikipedia because it'll be not me, or reviews of it or something. But the general idea about save is that all the pieces are there. If you want to do elections, there are at least two different groups that are doing online secure elections. The secure with CIV, Secure Internet Voting, CIV.org, or heliosvoting.org are two different ways of, you could get get an election. I believe they both do approval voting fairly simply, and that's all you need for this. The collaboratorium stuff is, I think, public already, and that's a way of getting, you know, your candidate description or your choice or alternative descriptions up there, along with the pros and cons for them in a fairly basic way without a lot of campaigning or something. And those are ideas. So there are just a lot of different ways that it can go forward. At this point, what I'm looking for is help to get these things. There's a lot of stuff to do, but I can only type so fast. And, you know, farming out some of this work would be great and would get other people involved and would, you know, be a good thing. So that's what, you know, coming on here, getting people to vote. There's an address on the SAVE website, the serialapprovalvoteelection.org site, for info, and that can, you know, that feeds into my email. So for anything like that, to get in touch with me on this stuff if you want, or probably a few other ways you can find me on LinkedIn or something. But
I love it.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, like I said, thank you.
Yeah.
So the monthly newsletters for Electorama are at electowiki.org/wiki/Electorama news. Corrections and news tips can go to news@electorama.com, or you can edit the newsletter directly. It is a wiki. So thanks for joining us, Tom. I'm Rob Lanfear.
I'm Taylor Eigenfisher.
I'm Carlo Estefano.
And thanks for watching Electorama Weekly. And I'm going to
Let's see.